Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Doctor Will See You Now. I'm back with you to discuss great crime fiction and to bring you as many possible authors that would have been at Newcastle Noir 2020. And today's author gives me great pleasure because Newcastle Noir was meant to be the place where this amazing novel, this crime fiction wonderment, became public knowledge. Sadly, we couldn't do that, but we are absolutely thrilled to welcome Andrew James Greig into the surgery. Welcome, Andrew. It's lovely to see you again.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's so good to talk. I really enjoy your writing, and I'm so pleased that Fledgling Press said yes to the publication of Whirligig, because if I may make so bold as to say, every now and again in the field of crime fiction, a novel comes along that just shakes things up a little bit, that just makes us stop and consider, because as we well know, the number of people who just have voracious appetites for all that is crime fiction. We really enjoy the stuff, and as it is produced and it comes out, it's great. But I think with Whirligig, you've done a little bit of that shaking again. So thank you so much for
What
doing that.
to have, yes. Well, thank
Mm.
you to Fledgling, Claire Kane and all the Fledgling team for taking the book on. It's always a leap into the dark, especially for a small publisher to take someone new. And I'm glad for them as well that it's done so well.
Yeah, it was a almost like a match made in heaven, if we can say that. It was really, yeah, very good. Um, you you were originally born in London, and then you moved to Wales, and then you moved to Bristol, and you have been global, and now you're based in Scotland.
Mhm.
You worked as an aerospace engineer,
Mhm.
but you married that alongside being a sound engineer. I love the fact of that two-sided engineering. Yeah, the speed of sound, maybe, I'm not sure. Um, did you honestly, truly, at some point in your life, combine both those aspects? And if you did, how did you do it?
Um, that's a very good question. Yes, there was one point where I was able to combine those two worlds, but really they're two completely disparate worlds. Desperate sometimes. Um,
Desperate and desperate. Mm.
So one minute I'm doing things that the Official Secrets Act ensures I don't tell you about, and the next minute I'm doing things that mixing bands at Glastonbury, at WOMAD, Shetland Folk Festival. I was all over the place doing all sorts of things. So everyone from Ravi Shankar to the Fall, I think. So it's quite a mix.
Wow, honestly, what experiences you've
Mhm.
had. And but
Pretty unusual.
yeah, but it's and I wonder though, at what point did the sound engineer and the aerospace engineer come to that realization of I have I have stories in me
Mhm.
that want to be out on a page, and I want to put them out to the public. Do you have a defining moment that you can look to, or was it a gradual process? How?
It's nothing as straightforward as that. Um, my crime writing career started, as you probably know, just a year ago. So I'm very, very fresh to this whole genre. My previous book, I've described my first ever book, which came out 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Uh, I described as fairy tart noir, and there doesn't seem to be a catalogue listing for that on the shelves. So no one was interested in publishing that. So I thought I'd better do something a bit more easily defined. Hence the crime fiction.
Mm, mm, mm.
And whether I bring aspects of my life into that or not, I suppose that all authors do somewhere along the line. I guess you have to write from experience.
Mm.
The reason it's set in the Highlands in a sort of fictionalized Fort William is because I hitched there when I was 18. I just sat my A levels, which no one expected me to take, and accordingly I failed them miserably. And I thought, what should I do? And I put my thumb out and hitched up to Fort William, got a job with the Forestry Commission, spent many happy months walking above the lochs, Loch Lochy, Loch Arkaig, chopping away undergrowth from young trees and stuff. And that's obviously stayed with me, the love for that environment and the beauty of the Highlands. And maybe also some of the very quiet Highlanders that I worked alongside, maybe they feature in some way. So I'd bring that in as well. But out of the other stuff, ooh, I don't know. I guess having a good understanding of weapons technology comes in quite useful. But the clockwork mechanisms are more from my childhood in London, when I used to delight in going around jumble sales, of which there used to be very many in the early days. And the first thing you do, if you're a professional jumble sale goer, as I was at the age of 7, is you get a pram, a big old sit up and beg pram, because they made great go-karts. And you can also get a hell of a lot inside a pram. And I used to fill them up with old clocks. You can see where I'm going with this. And wind up gramophones and all that, because I used to love that sort of thing. And I'd fill the house up with them, and my parents get very distressed. And this is going so far back, there was a thing called a rag and bone man who used to come around. I don't know if you get those. You used to have those in Newcastle, did you? Yeah, you did.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, I was probably an early recycler, I guess, because I take all these things home, try and fix them, and then they go on the rag and bone, probably back to the jumble sales where I buy them once more.
Circular,
yeah, early recycler. So, yeah, I think that's where the clockwork element comes in. So, to cut a long story short, yes, I think aspects of my life, everyone's experience probably is reflected in their books that they write.
They write, yeah. I'm intrigued as well that you say, coming into the world of writing, and that, your first novel, Fairy Tart and Noir. I just want to say to you, there isn't a classification yet, because you never know. I think there's a lot of mileage in that, and I would be really keen to see people develop that. So I thank you for being somebody who, again, has put another marker down. I know we're not here to talk about that book, but I really think you're a groundbreaker in many ways. Now, so Whirligig, though, and what we should say before we delve deeper into the novel, is that you were longlisted for the 2020 CWA John Creasy New Blood Dagger Award, and you have been shortlisted for the Bloody Scotland McIlvenney Prize for 2020, soon to be announced. But just very well done. For the nominations and then the listings and that. I think it stands testimony again to the strength of your writing, and or two sides, the plot, the story, but also the way that you recount that story, your use of language. If murder could be seen as poetic, and could be seen as fine writing, I think, you talk about being the new kid on the block, but you write with, I think, with a maturity that belies a debut crime novel. So,
well, that's very kind. I think the maturity comes, it's part of staying alive for a long time.
Yeah, there's got to be some benefits, hasn't there? Yeah, definitely. Now, you say that, so we'll talk about the setting first, and you've already told us that, based on your experiences in Fort William, yeah. And I wonder, when you mapped out the novel, were you very much in your head, not necessarily physically, were you very much in Fort William, or did you allow yourself to create new spaces within that existing reality?
I think it's safe to say that I've created a fictionalized Fort William, but obviously using the experience I had from living there. I don't live that far away from there now. I'm in Dunblane, so a wee bit south, but it's easily enough reached from here. And I do pop up every now and then and enjoy sort of walking around there. But I've not slavishly followed the exact geographical layout or anything else. So the bit you get in the front of every book, any resemblance to anyone living or dead, etc., is very applicable in this instance. Also, the number of people I managed to kill in Whirligig, I think property prices would be declining there at quite a rate.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this. This was actually my next question. I love the fact that we've not prepped this, but this is great. So a series of murders,
Yep.
rather than the one murder mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find that you had to stop yourself from putting more bodies in this story? Were there a set amount of murders that you knew you wanted to bring on the page? And as I say, that choice of, no, I won't just have this one body found. There's going to be bodies along the way.
Yeah, I mean, some authors, I think, probably plan these things out quite meticulously. I don't know, J.K. Rowling, for example, had at the end of her huge Harry Potter sequence already planned before she started, I think. I'm one of those people who starts a book, and I literally start with a blank sheet of paper, and I just start writing on it with absolutely no idea what's going to happen. And I think in a lot of ways, for me, at least, that's very freeing, because I'm not constrained in any shape or form to follow any sort of tangents that I've got in my mind. So you get to about halfway, 2/3 of the way through a book, if you write in this style, and you suddenly realize I've got all these threads going in all directions, and oh my God, I've got to tie them all together. Because you know, I referred to it recently as in another chat I was giving about it's like having the different bits of yarn that you've got in a tapestry, hence spinning a yarn, I guess. And what you have to do at the end of the tapestry is end up with a pattern at the very least, if not a picture. So it's my writing, and I think probably quite a few other authors, is a similar sort of struggle to put all these things together and leave it looking something half decent that someone wants to buy. So yeah, there wasn't a set number of deaths. I feel maybe I've got one or two too many in there. It does get a little bit extreme, but in terms of the story and the rationale for it all and why these people died, it made perfect sense to me. So yeah, that stays.
I think so. I think, you know, if you read, you know, metaphorically as the way certain things in life touch other people, I think then maybe there needed to be, you know, that number of people
Yeah, it's a sort
dispatched.
of exercising karma, I think, the Whirligig. The butterfly effect with blooded wings, maybe.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
That'll be the next book.
Yeah. Not the ripple effect, but the spatter effect.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned when we started to talk about how the bone and the wooden clockwork mechanisms, you know, that are drawn from your childhood.
Ah.
And again, you know, the fact that these are left at the scene of the crime was that idea already there? I mean, you speak about writing with a blank sheet before you know it, but was it, you know, was that imagery, was it there from childhood? And why? Well, it's really difficult without giving things away. But why were you so keen to use this, if you can say without spoilers?
Yeah, I think so. It literally takes me back to that front sheet of paper, the first sheet of paper in the prologue, where I just described this tree in a lonely glen, and there's something interesting about it because up in the branches is this peculiar clockwork mechanism made out of bone and wood. And what's it there to do, and why is it doing what it does? And the prologue kind of deals with that fairly succinctly, I think, or certainly the first chapter, when the first unsuspecting person gets dealt with. And that really writes the story for me, because it's these clockwork mechanisms have done their deed once. They're going to be doing their deed a couple of other times, and it has to be the same modus operandi. So yeah, it was really the prologue that drove the story for me.
I, I'm just fascinated by the fact that, all those many years ago, when you were, an original recycler, and here that is back again, you
Yeah,
know, it,
absolutely. It could well be. I mean, there's plenty of tales from my sound engineering past, or touring the world with bands and things that I can certainly use. I mean, I do know what it's like to have a gun held next to your head, because I had one held next to my head in Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, with a policeman at the other end of it demanding money. So, I can I perhaps have a fairly good understanding what it's like to have some of these things happen to you, and such like. Mm.
mm, I'm going to ask you later on about what's coming next.
Mhm.
And yeah, I can't wait to see what you'll bring into the story. Now, but back to Whirligig, and a feeling, a novel that to me seems an indictment on small community life. And then again, that idea of those who are in a position of trust who do not maintain that, or who are derelict in their duty. Um, tricky, tricky aspects to deal with.
Mhm.
And I just wondered, in the writing, and I'm not talking about your own life at all in any way, shape, or form, but was there a, excuse me, was there a sense in this of you bringing justice?
Yes, I think so. I felt justice had to be done for the sins that historically have occurred in that story, and they weren't going to come about. Justice was never going to be served in the traditional sense. So it might not excuse the fact that someone's out there murdering people, but it certainly explains why someone's out there murdering people. And in terms of people in positions of power not really doing their jobs, I mean, you don't have to look much further than the modern day political landscape to think,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Totally.
things could be a lot better than they are, and people could be a lot more caring and interested in the country that they're meant to be managing, than they are at present, because it seems to me a lot of them are merely interested in lining their own pockets. So yeah, maybe
Indeed.
there's got to be another book comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Cycles too, we'll call it.
Please, please do it. Yeah, I think, very much that sense of holding that, holding that mirror up to society, and, saying how should people behave. I think as well that idea of the sins of commitment and then sins of omission, not stepping in, not taking, the opportunity to prevent something. Um, but yeah, better not get too wrapped up in that. You could have set me off on a whole different tack. I promise you, what we'll do another time is we'll have a political moment.
All right, okay.
Yes,
I'll get my red
please.
flag out.
Yeah. We'll put up, I don't know, sort of like a trigger warning or something at the beginning, just in case. No, but back to Whirligig,
Yeah.
and of course a police procedural, beautiful police procedural, and you have a police team, but you have a main character in partnership. Um, and so I wonder, for anybody who hasn't had the benefit yet of delving into the pages, please could you introduce to us your main protagonist and his partner, and then the team around.
Okay. The main protagonist is Detective Inspector James Christoffin, a man of sort of indeterminate years. I guess he must be about mid-40s, early 40s maybe. And in some ways, he kind of obeys the stereotypical inspector detective inspector in that he has baggage. He carries baggage around with him. But his baggage tends to be his wife, who died of cancer some years previously.
Mm-hmm.
And he quite often, throughout the story, is having the occasional word with her, or she's having the occasional word with him. So it's a sort of a little bit of a tragic glimpse into his background. Apart from that, he's not really the hardened drinker or anything else. The usual tropes that get chopped out. So that's him, and he's a bit of a plodder. He's not I wouldn't say he's no Sherlock Holmes, my dear Christoffel. He gets there in the end, but it's by painstaking police work and dogged perseverance rather than any huge leaps of intuition. Any leaps of intuition are left to his sidekick, really, which is Detective Constable Frankie Blair. She's a single woman. She was married, but her husband left her some years previously. Again, she's a little bit on the shelf, as is Christoffel himself, and they both have to sort of deal with that in their own way. Christoffel by trying these dating agencies and things, which for someone in their mid-40s must be excruciatingly difficult. I'm pleased to say I don't have to do that. But you know, I try and bring some of that, the reality of what that must be like in the pages as well. And I don't think it's very easy. And then we've got the old the old sergeant, desk sergeant, Hamish McKee, who seems to spend most of his time on the front desk, dealing with the general public. And he's very, very slow. And I guess his character must come from one of the guys I worked alongside in the Forestry Commission. Very sparing in his words, and what words he did use would come out so slowly that you had to have the patience of a saint to listen to one sentence. And then the other two are two constables. The one of them, PC Phil Lamb, provides the comic content, maybe, because he comes out with the most inopportune phrases at every moment, and he's very new and fresh, and is kind of a bit of the bane of Christoffel's life with what he manages to come out with on a fairly regular basis. And that's kind of it, really. So I've got a small team, which is a little bit unrealistic, because I think Fort William Police Station is actually quite large and probably has a fairly large team there. But I make the excuse that any of these police procedurals, even in the big Glasgow City Police Station or whatever, seem to have a small cast of characters, because they work together all the time, and the others are doing their stuff elsewhere, but these are the guys working together on a regular basis.
Closely together. I just wanted to comment that that main protagonist, James Christoffel, I see in the way that he works, he reminded me of Martin Beck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that
A little bit sad.
Yeah, a little bit sad, but that kind of a pure plodder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, doing the work, doing the police work, and I really enjoyed that, because I think, you know, rather nothing wrong with the technical, either the technical whiz bods, you know, or those that receive some kind of intervention that points them in a direction, but somebody just doing their job and doing it thoroughly and doing it well. And
Yeah, well, I hope to think that he brings the reader along with him as well, because obviously he knows as much as the reader. So it's always a bit of a game, isn't it? Who's going to get there first, the reader or the detective? So, yeah.
So yeah, loved it. But I have to ask you about, probably, I don't know if anybody's asked you this before, and it might be a tricky one, but you don't shy away from violence in the novel, not at all. And it's quite grim, but it's not gratuitous. And I just wonder, again, did you sit down and think, I can take it this far, or I can use this kind of description, but I mustn't do that, because if I do that, it will go over? Or did it just naturally appear so?
I think it'd be really boring and say it naturally appeared so. I'm aware that some of the scenes are starting to get a wee bit difficult for some readers, but that's going to be how it is, I'm afraid. I don't want to make it too sugar coated.
Mm,
I don't
mm,
think necessarily real life is not that this is real life. It's obviously a story, but I try and reflect as well as I can the reality of what they were facing without making it too twee. Yes.
yeah. No, just again, I think you get. I know for some people any form of violence is not palatable, so I understand that. But I do feel you've hit the sweet spot in the story needed this, but you didn't push it to like
I don't think it's gratuitous. No,
exactly,
there's, there's
exactly.
there's plenty of crime books out there where, well, not just crime thrillers, but where sometimes it gets gratuitous,
Mhm.
especially violence towards women.
Yes, yeah.
Happen an awful lot in crime books, and I personally am very uncomfortable with that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I'm trying to avoid those sorts of things just because they don't sit well with me.
Mhm.
And if it does come across maybe as a little bit too grim, well, there's always other books that you can buy that deal with things in a much lighter way.
Exactly, exactly. I think for me, it's important that an author feel a sense of freedom in creating a fictional story. You know, and people will pick up a book or not depending on their taste, and
Mhm.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
You spoke of your time with the forestry,
Mhm.
um, but I wonder even nowadays, and I bring this up because of the way you describe the setting. I've said this to you before. I think that that opening page or the opening chapter of him walking and your description of the space around him is so vibrant.
Mm.
And I mean, do you spend much time in nature? And are you transported in the way that I think you transport the reader in that description?
I think that's fair. Yes, I think you're right. I do obviously love nature, and if some of that is reflected in the writing, then
Mm,
that's great. I mean, authors I like Robert Macfarlane, for example, with his
mm,
books, which are very much philosophizing and involved in nature and the real world. I love the way he writes, and maybe that reflects it in how I write. But certainly, when I'm writing a book, I'm actually there. It is for me. I'm in the film, and I'm creating and directing the film as I go through it. I'm very much a
mm,
visual writer. I think I don't know because I've only just started writing. I've no idea how other writers work, but for me, everything is a film reel running in my mind, and I just look around me and I describe what I'm seeing.
mm, mm. It's beautiful. Now, we can't not mention this, but how has this the nominations and then the listings that you've received?
Yeah.
Of course, it's felt amazing, but in your own words, what do you feel that's done for you as somebody at the start of their journey as an author?
Well, if I was setting sail in my little boat,
Mhm.
it's having a force 9 gale up my backside, basically. Uh, uh,
Mhm.
it's amazing. I wrote this without any expectation of even finding a publisher, and I can say that hand on heart because it's the second book I've ever written. The first book, no one wanted. I had a few interesting comments about it, I admit, but no one wants to publish it. So I thought it'd be very much the same with the second book. And the first bit of astonishment I had was when Claire Kane from Fledgling jumped on a train from Edinburgh to Dunblane and signed me pretty much on the spot. Who was the only person who actually expressed any interest. It did go to other publishers. Obviously, you tend to send it out wherever you think you might stand a chance. So getting published, Claire putting me forward for these awards, that was amazing of her, because obviously she felt in her heart it deserved to go somewhere. I didn't actually have any thought at all about that. Never occurred to me it might be entered for an award. It never occurred to me I'd be longlisted. So when it got to be shortlisted, especially for the CWA Dagger, where I'm up against well-established authors who've got tons of amazing books out there, I mean, household names, I was blown away. And of course, the award itself comes out tomorrow night. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I am not expecting to win. I can tell you that. So if I do win by some weird chance, I will just fall over and probably not be able to say anything at all. I was asked on a previous blog where someone alluded to the award, saying, you know, have you decided where you're putting it in your house, on a mantelpiece or whatever? Which is such a weird question to be asked. And I said, well, I think if I'm given the award, the first thing I'd do is drop it. So out of shock, so I wouldn't have to worry about where to put it because it'd be in pieces. But in terms of the practicalities of all this, which you allude to, then yes, it's made a difference. Obviously, there's people out there, readers who now will go out and buy the next book on the basis of them liking Whirligig, which is a huge help. There's an agent waiting in the wings at the moment. So yeah, I've had industry interest, I think it's probably safe to say, which otherwise I would never have had. So for someone starting writing a little late in life, should we say, I probably need as much headwind as I can get. And this one has, all this interest has really helped.
I love what you say, because I think especially at this time, anybody bringing a book out at the moment, it's tricky. I mean, you know, you mentioned household names, and having spoken to some of them at the start of lockdown, and even people, you know, like that saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know about selling books at the moment. And so, you know, I'm just thrilled for you that, even as you say, you know, even the listing, it gives them a beautiful boost in a world where there are so many books to be had. That is out there. I mean, seriously, people watching, if you haven't had a chance to get hold of Whirligig and have a read, honestly, I can almost 100% guarantee that you pick this book up, you sit down with a cuppa, and you might find that you've not got back up again until you've finished it. Be prepared for that. Yeah. So, well, I wish you all the very best with that, whatever the outcome of, you know, of that. I know that this will take you on, and it leads me to my last question, and without putting you under too much pressure. Okay, Whirligig for you was a book that was written and came out, and are you on to something new now? Please tell me that you are.
Yes, I've literally just about finished another book about Christoffel and his team. It needs a severe edit. I have to go through it all because it's fairly unreadable at the moment. But then that's kind of how I work. I dash it out at quite a rate, and then read it over and think this is a load of old rubbish, and I have to kind of sweeten it. So yeah, it's just about done. And again, same setting, same cast of characters, different protagonists that they're up against, of course, this time. And if the last one dealt with a fairly unsavory subject, this one likewise deals with a difficult subject, and that's kind of mental health. I've in this one. So I guess I'm not shying away from the difficult things here. It'd be much easier just to have someone rampaging around with a sword or shotgun or something, who's just out for vengeance or something. But no, I prefer the more sort of nuanced problems that face society, and I'm trying to deal with that in the next book, which I've tentatively titled "The Devil's Cut," but that might change.
Mm-hmm. I, I I love what you say about not shying away from things, and you know, again, it's one of those topics or issues of the moment, mental health, and how I think even COVID has made us even consider, you know, to a greater degree, how you know how people are affected by
Mm-hmm.
such issues. But you giving us a novel is a way that we can consider, as I often say, from the safety of a book,
Mm-hmm.
you know, rather than the pain of in real life, I think. Um, so yeah, I look forward very much when that comes out, whether it be The Devil's Cut or whether it comes out as titled something else. Um, Obviously, Whirligig and the title there, you know, coming with the Shakespearean reference, the Whirligig of Time. Have you done this similar thing with the Devil's Cut? Have you taken it from somewhere?
Um, no, there's not a quote associated with it, but the Devil's Cut is comes from the distilling process. Everyone's heard of the angel's share.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
They've not heard of the Devil's Cut quite so much. The angel's share is the amount of alcohol that's lost due to evaporation through the cask. The Devil's Cut is that which is absorbed by the wood of the cask itself.
And
Uh,
remains behind. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's where it comes from, because there is a distillery involved in the story, quite heavily involved in the story actually.
Mm. Oh, well, in which case, Andrew, I look forward very much to raising a dram with you. I hope that we can do it actually in real life
In
when
real
that,
life, it'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
wouldn't it? But if we can't and we come back and do it here, we'll both be primed and shall do so.
I can have my glass ready.
Thank you so much for being with us on The Doctor Will See You Now. It has been a total pleasure to be in conversation, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much, Jackie. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.